This forecast update effective around 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Saturday, September 7th, 2013. And going to start you off with some surf photos this morning, confirming our call for some increasing surf along the southeast U.S. coast. We do have some surf reports calling it need a waist high plus. This image, courtesy of VoidLive.com, Void Magazine, Jacksonville Beach Pier, and our very own Terry DeLoach picking off a little right-hander this morning. Looks like he's setting up for a nice bottom turn and a hit off the lip. This is just in time for the Sisters of the Sea surf contest at Jacksonville Beach Pier. So if you're anywhere around Jacksonville Beach Pier and want to attend a real fun surf contest, Sisters of the Sea, Jacksonville Beach Pier this morning. Also wanted to switch you over to 911surfreport.com. Although northeast winds blowing pretty moderate at the poles this morning, Brad picks off a left-hander, looks to be about waist high and maybe lining up to chest high down the line. So swell is starting to fill in. We are seeing some positive signs on the indicator buoys that the swell is holding. Should fill in later throughout the day and hold until at least tomorrow. We are also looking at the possibility of some increasing larger surf starting around Tuesday of next week. Now, we've been calling for that for the last couple of days as with this little increasing surf. So definitely want to make sure you stay tuned for that. Going to switch you now over to what the tropics look like. And guys, if it wasn't for high wind shear across the board, the Atlantic would be wide open right now with probably 4 tropical storms. We'll start you off with a wide look of the Gulf of Mexico and what became TD number 8 yesterday. Now, TD number 8 did move inland, but it left behind a lot of deep convection over here because of that wind shear blowing it back into the Bay of Campeche. Now, models are starting to hint again, just as we forecast the other day in our video update, of another tropical wave trying to work its way into the Gulf of Mexico, and we could see another system trying to develop in this same location. There are indications that the size of it could be large enough where it could produce a small bump for the Panhandle beaches next week. I know you guys are suffering again over there, waiting for some surf. I did see some pictures of some small little surf at Fort Walton Beach Pier, courtesy of FluidSurfShop.com. Now, the little spin, give me a second, let me adjust this and get back to my zoom feature. The little spin that we watched yesterday just east of North Florida has worked its way all the way down into Southwest Florida. And again, if it wasn't for some strong wind shear, we would see something try and spin up here. We saw this yesterday, but as you can see, convection is starting to fire back up, filtering across South Florida and over into the Bahamas. Now, the setup in here, one of the reasons why we issued the watch box, and we'll post that image, or we'll have that image posted on our website, of what we think may happen. Models are kind of all over the place. But as you can see how this is lifting out over Cuba, this is starting to funnel in some deeper moisture across into the Bahamas here. Going back over to what was Tropical Storm Gabby, we're going to call it Gabby because we can't ever pronounce Gabrielle, but the low-level circulation that was associated with Gabrielle has now spun out now and has left the convection behind. There is some interesting developments with this system, as it looks like a new center of rotation is now trying to develop in between the channel between the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico in here. You can see how convection is starting to build in here, and convection is somewhat favorable in this region for another new low-level circulation to develop. We're going to have to wait about 72 hours for the trough to settle down, and environmental conditions are forecast to become a little bit favorable in the western Atlantic here, just east of Florida. And we're going to switch you back over to the Rainbow Loop real quick, looking at the Gulf of Mexico. And as you can see, convection is firing back up, but wind shear is really, really strong in here. And as the trough or the front begins to settle down, we could see a resurgence in an area of low pressure that may try and develop in here in the Bay of Campeche next week. Switching you over to the floater loop of what was Tropical Storm Gabrielle. Again, in the satellite imagery, you can see that the low-level circulation that was associated with Tropical Storm Gabrielle has now spun away from the convection and is just north of the southeast Bahamas in here. Now, as you can see, convection is wanting to pulse up and then shift to the south a little bit. And this is giving us a clear indication that the convection is trying to build back towards what we believe is a new center of rotation, trying to develop in between the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico. Going back to the wider view, guys, you can see that convection is pulsing back up with the remnants of Tropical Storm Gabby right in here. But we also have the 98L, I believe it is, that is just west of the Cape Verde Islands, and convection is flaring back up with it as well. Now, we're not going to see anything develop out of that wave, but this wave is now forecast to move off towards the west. And with it, we're going to see some increasing swells with this. I think the highest seas forecast with it at the moment is about 7 to 8 feet. But this wave energy is going to also help produce a pulse coming in here. We've already got an established southeast flow. This is going to re-enhance it. So we should see some increasing surf conditions next week as long as this holds together as it crosses the Atlantic. The main factor that has been inhibiting tropical storm development off the African coast has been the Saharan air layer. And as you can see, this is minimal at best at the moment. This is that 98L that we were talking about, and we should have 90L invest later on today. Now, the forecast models are showing this taking a northwest turn as it gets past the Cape Verde Islands. We're not buying that solution just yet. The models had also been suggesting that 98L was also going to do the same exact thing, but now we see it 4 or 5 days later where they now want to take this tropical wave and move it off towards the west. So we're going to be watching this, and although models are hinting at that, guys, the models are confused at the moment. So don't be a model follower. Let's look at what's happening in real time. Looking at the latest shear analysis, you can see why we're not getting anything to develop tropical in nature. The yellows that you see here is all high wind shear. The orange indicates wind shear into the 40 to 50 knot range. But as you can see over here towards Hispaniola, wind shear has been decreasing, indicated by the blue dashed lines and the -10. Wind shear has been decreasing a little bit in here and is somewhat favorable just south of Puerto Rico. Now, if we can get Tropical Storm Gabrielle or Gabby to hang around for a little 3 or 4 days, models are hinting back at that blocking high idea that we presented to you in our video update a couple of days ago. Now, we issued a watch box the other day, and again, you can see the still image. We'll post it in the thread of the area that we're going to be watching. One of the interesting things in the overnight is the GFS model now takes the remnants of Tropical Storm Gabrielle and moves it due west across Cuba and into the Gulf of Mexico. Now, we're not buying that solution either, but it's just going to show you the difference in models, because the Canadian model actually develops it into a hurricane and then moves it to the north and then off towards the northeast towards New England. It does not look like that's going to happen because, again, the GFS is back in on the blocking high idea and wants to build in an area of strong high pressure over the northeast in the extended period. That's all we got for you right now, guys. Stay tuned for the next update.